Welcome to the November 21st meeting of the Rotary Club of Louisville and the Kiwanis Club of Louisville. Two clubs. I'm president of one of those clubs, Kevin Lee, president of the Rotary Club. Please silence your phones. And during the invocation today is Karen Morrison, CEO of Gilda's Club, Kentuckiana, co-chair of the International Service Committee and chair of the Awards and Recognition Presentation Committee.
Thank you, President Kevin. Let's bow our heads. We gather here today as members of two of the world's most impactful service organizations. Let us pray. First, in gratitude for the opportunities bestowed upon us as servant leaders to face some of the world's greatest challenges with the resources and abilities to effect real and lasting change. Let us remain ever mindful of our ability and responsibility to render service above self to our fellow citizens and our community, keeping always in mind that our efforts build on the selfless acts of so many who have gone before us and provide a foundation upon which future generations can continue to grow and evolve effective solutions to whatever obstacles lie ahead. Help us to share not only our tangible wealth, but also our intangible riches of knowledge, leadership, and creativity to make our city, our nation, and our world a better place, one filled with peace, love, and far more vision than division. In a world that often rushes past during this week of Thanksgiving, let us take a moment to give thanks for unexpected kindnesses that grace our paths, these moments when strangers offering a helping hand or a compassionate smile remind us that humanity is inherently good. Let us extend our gratitude to those whose small acts of kindness ripple through the world, leaving traces of positivity and connections in their wake. And let us leave just such a wake. Amen.
Thank you, Karen. Leading us in the pledge and four-way test today is Thomas Stone, the Stone Law Group, and Paul Harris Miller.
Thank you, President Kevin. Rotarians and Kiwanians, let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rotarians, let's now recite the four-way test which guides what we think, say, and do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you.
Thanks, Thomas. Please be seated. I'd like to also take a moment to recognize our leadership. I'm grateful for the dedication given to our clubs over the years and Sylvia's leaders over the years. Please stand.
You can't hear you, Kevin.
Sorry. Please move the mic forward a moment. Please stand as you hear your name, if you can hear your name. Laurie Hudson, Flannery, President. Whoa, leave my mic alone, Lee. Stand, Laurie. Okay. Walt Tuno, immediate past president. Kevin Fields, secretary. Kim Halbauer, treasurer. And also the board of directors, Claire Arnold. With people taking early Thanksgiving vacation again. Greg Braun, it's not Greg. There he is. Dan Hartlich. Okay, Jay Mallory. Kevin McCarron. Greg Mooney. I know Denise Sears is traveling. And Louis Seeger. I think we'll have an unannounced board meeting right after this meeting. Make sure we attend. And this is where we introduce our guests. We won't introduce them individually today, but if you're a guest of a Rotarian or Kiwanian today, just please stand for a moment. And those who wish to learn more about Rotary, Craig Sherman will tell you about, there's a table, what is Rotary in the corner there. So after the meeting, if you want to learn more about the club, what it involves, and what it is to be a member, just stop by and see Craig. And we're appreciative of the Kiwanis joining us for Thanksgiving dinner. We enjoyed having a meal with you guys. And I'd like to invite Jenny Hyman, the president of your club, to speak to us.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon and happy Thanksgiving week to all of you. We are so happy to be here and having this joint meeting with our Rotarian brothers and sisters. I love seeing all my old friends, meeting new friends. So we have so much fun to start off this red kettle bell ringing competition to beat Rotary again and again and again. I'm Jenny Hyland, Princess President of the Kiwanis Club of Louisville. I'd like to introduce my royal court. Officers. Kevin Beckman, President-elect. Kevin. Off with his head. Kay Manning, Club Treasurer. Mark Garman, Club Secretary and past Governor. Love having a male secretary. Shelley Garman, Club Assistant Secretary and Division 12 Lieutenant Governor. So I'd like to mention a couple of our upcoming service projects. We're very busy bell ringing and beating you guys. We've got Christmas for Kids on Sunday, December the 10th. 9 o'clock at Myers on Preston. We are helping 500 plus needy children from Jefferson County and a few surrounding areas to shop for Christmas. So it takes a lot of us to take care of that, and it's wild. The second one is Wayside Christian Mission, Christmas for Kids, December 19th, 5:30 a.m. We're stuffing stockings and serving breakfast to these children before they go to school. Lord. Number 3 is our most favorite, and our major project is Hazard Hearing and Language Academy, Christmas for Kids. The party's on December the 21st. We got presents, Santa's there, sometimes Rudolph, and we have pizza and sweets. So it is fabulous, fabulous party. Am I introducing that? About the bell ringing competition? Can I? Okay. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our illustrious bell ringing leader and past president of Kiwanis, Ralph Behringer, to kick off the Red Kettle Bell Ringing Competition to beat Rotary. To help Salvation Army. Let's give him a
All righty, well, really appreciate you guys having us here today, and y'all are always such gracious hosts, and so yeah, we're here to enjoy each other's company today and to get a big send-off that each of our efforts in support of the Salvation Army and all the good things that they do for this city, for this nation. Whenever there's a crisis, you guys are right in the middle of it to take care of your fellow people, and we're just thankful to be a part of this. I know the Rotarians and the Kiwanians are. So I did want to say that we really appreciate the competition. You all are always spirited. You're always hopeful. You've got a great expectation that this year will be the year. And we appreciate that. We really do. We kind of laugh under our breath, but it's okay. It's okay. You know, the last time that you all won the competition, I think that Latin was the primary language.
Not fair, you guys work at more programs and more dates.
No, but it's spectacular. No, we enjoy this, and it does get everybody excited about being out there and helping the Salvation Army. So thanks again. You guys keep it up, and we're gonna make sure that this year is a banner year for the Salvation Army.
Thanks, that is a great cause. Just to clarify one thing, they've won the last few years, but we're going to be steady, reliable, we'll always get there. We've been the top 2 every single year of that competition. I'm not bragging, it's true. I'd like to invite a couple of very special Rotarians to the table to the front today. Dr. Charlie Oberst, past club president, one of our best presidents ever. Lifetime Service Award honoree, member of the 1912 Society, Paul Harris, plus me, and just a good friend. Charlie, it's great to have you back here. And also, Matt McClure, who's been with us for 50 years in all the clubs, is so involved today, member of the 1912 Society, and Paul Harris fellow as well. You guys can join me to the podium. Come on. I've been a member of the club for about 10 years, and it's amazing the impact these guys have had in the years that I've been here. To think about that, it's 1/5 of their time as Rotarians. I can't imagine all the people who've done it over the world. It's amazing. And one thing, we give these pins to each one of them. You have to work 50 years to get one of these pins, so take a look at this. Get your binoculars and have a good look. But I'll let you put on your side. I would probably touch it if I put it on this. But just put it on there.
And it is a donation, it's 25 cents.
Just hand it to
You put it on there. We can do that.
You have to unscrew it and then
We can do these yet.
Well, the problem is, the little bill was,
how many Rotarians?
The change the light bulb. You can do that. Okay, fine. And just thinking back, the impact they've had on the world is pretty amazing. I also want to introduce today's speaker for a rebuttal. I'd like to introduce by Kelly Hutchinson, Executive Director of Development of the Salvation Army in Louisville, to share a little bit about the Red Tail community.
Thank you, President Kevin. I can't follow the Kiwanis, but I will say that yesterday launched the start of bell ringing season across our community with 67 locations and some 25,000 hours between now and Christmas Eve. The Salvation Army needs to fill those with volunteer bell ringers. A kettle without a bell ringer is an empty kettle. No organizations do more in our community to keep the bells ringing than the Kiwanis Club and the Rotary Club of Louisville. We are thankful. We do not take your support for granted. We do need more volunteer bell ringers. Our thanks to Ralph Behringer with Kiwanis. He has organized Kiwanis this year to ring from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. at 6 doors, and they have plans to cover at least 150 hours. Let's go. Thank you, George Breitmeyer and Louis Seeger, for your help with Rotary Club of Louisville, for recruiting our volunteers, and for keeping the bells ringing at Holiday Manor Kroger. Lastly, I need everybody here to know that the funds raised in the kennels not only provide Christmas assistance in our community, these funds that we raise at Christmas impact how many people we can serve in the coming year. They help us shelter, they help us feed, respond during disaster, and offer emergency assistance for neighbors who are struggling to break the cycles of poverty. So, how do you feed someone hungry that you may never meet? That's right. Thank you all so much.
Thanks, Kelly. Now, our speaker, Jay Bruce Miller, it just dawned on me, I've known Bruce for a third of a year. We worked on a couple of cases together, that was back 35 years ago, third of a century ago, sorry. He's the founder of the J. Bruce Miller Law Group, and he's completely non-controversial, very shy, but we'll get him across there. He's a native Brazilian. He went to Atherton High School, and he went to Vandy for college and law school. He served as county attorney for 4 consecutive terms. That's 4-year terms, 16 years. We couldn't get rid of the guy. He did a hell of a job. And I was amazed when he worked on the cases we worked on. He was totally dedicated. That guy was passionate, and he's all in whatever he's working on, whatever he thinks is the right thing to do. Since the mission of Kentucky Bar at 65, he's actually argued before 39 federal district courts and 7 circuit courts. That's more than half of the circuit courts in the United States, for the federal circuit courts. So he's speaking everywhere. He's represented over 200 professional athletes in his time. And he's also led, in conjunction with Kentucky governors Patton, Beshear, Steve Beshear, and Andy Beshear, Louisville's effort to obtain an NBA franchise. I welcome to the podium the shy and unassuming Bruce Miller.
I'm bringing this up because in I will explain my friendship with David Stern. I will explain it in a minute. But David, the deceased former commissioner of the league for so many years, gave me 2 Christmas presents one year. I used to get them all the time before he passed, and I've got a number of them hung up, autographed in the office. But this was the first present he gave me, and he gave me another one just like it. And he said, whenever you get an NBA team in Louisville, Kentucky, use the other one. You can see this thing's bad shape. It's got a few more years. I will explain my friendship quickly with David, and so you can understand how it happened, how a guy from 551 Eastern Parkway would wind up meeting David Stern in his career. David was a lawyer in the firm of Prosper and Rose, a huge firm in New York City, and in the 1970s. And when I went with John Y., I represented John Y., and I'm not violating confidence because I've written the book and I've said it. He's authorized me before he passed, of course, to say the story. I was with him when he sold the Colonels for $3 million. Because, and the reason he did it was it was a bad deal. No drafts for 2 years when the league merged with the ABA. Member of the draft for 2 years. First and second round of the draft. No TV revenue for a couple of years. It was a stupid deal. So John sold his team to the league for $3 million. And to show you his brilliance, he already had a deal cut with the owner of the Buffalo Braves, who was in the NBA at the time. So he took the $3 million, bought the Buffalo Braves, and we were going to move the Buffalo Braves to Louisville. That's how smart he was. Well, we ran into problems because there was a guy by the name of Red Auerbach, and for some reason or another, we had involved Adolph, or the Colonels had involved Adolph Rupp in the operation. Wendell and David Jones and the various owners, and John White, the various owners of the Colonels at the time, had involved Adolph for publicity purposes. And for some reason, Red Auerbach was of the opinion that he was a racist. And so Red Auerbach attached that to Louisville, and he had a lot of power then. He was just the general manager of the Celtics, but he had a lot of power within the league, and so we couldn't transfer the Braves to Louisville. And so John White arranged another story. Irv Levin owned the Celtics, and Irv always wanted to have a team in San Diego, which is where he was from. So John White cut a deal with Irv Levin, and he traded the Buffalo Braves to Irv in return for the Boston Celtics. So John was a 60% owner of the Boston Celtics. Irv Levin owned the Buffalo Braves, and he transferred them to San Diego. They changed, he passed, and they changed. And so now today, if you follow professional basketball in the NBA, what used to be the San Diego Clippers are now the Los Angeles Clippers, which really are the Kentucky Colonels. In reality, and all that baloney, and all of that personality, I get a big kick out of the fact that that's the case. In trying to get down to the point, I did write the book in 2004, and I want to talk about what we've done recently, so that it would bring you up to date. But there are several significant things in the book, and one of them is, by the year 2000, the 28 cities in the NBA produced a combined metropolitan gross product, which is the value of all goods and services produced, of $4,232 million, which represented 41.5% of the entire $10 trillion gross of the American national product. And that's on page 17. If these 28 American cities were a seat in the NBA in 2004, in the year 2000, if these 28 American cities were a single nation, it would possess the world's second largest economy, with a gross national product of $4,220 billion. That's the significance of what those cities, and now there are 30 cities. How did I know David Stern to write this and be involved in this? I represented John Y., as I indicated to you when we went to the closeout meeting in Hyatt Hotel outside of Chicago, across from the O'Hare Airport, and John took his money and ran with the Celtics, or the Buffalo Braves. The 4 teams entering the league asked me if I would go with them to Hyannisport and for the final meetings. And I agreed to do that. They would pay me, and they did. And so I went there, and that's where I met David Stern in Hyannisport, Massachusetts, in 1976. He was just a young lawyer for a huge law firm in New York. And 2 years later, he became the general counsel for the NBA. And 6 years later, in '84, David became the commissioner of the NBA. And he was without a doubt the greatest commissioner of any sport that ever existed. And I say that because I'm prejudiced, but that's how I met David. And we remained friends, Christmas presents and all of that, until a couple of years ago when in November, about this, as a matter of fact, it was about two weeks from now, he had a stroke in a restaurant at lunch in New York and passed away on January 1st, 2022. So, and I went to, so that's how I got to know David. He absolutely believed for his entire life that I knew him, that it was crazy we didn't have an NBA team in Louisville, Kentucky. He didn't understand it. Denny Crum didn't understand it. Denny was a supporter of it. I can't say the same for Rick Pitino. And I take care of Rick in here. If he needs taken care of, he does need taken care of. Because before I wrote this, I read his life story, and he had a pretty rough upcoming, bringing up in Queens, New York. But he wanted to be the biggest dog in town, and he knew he wasn't going to be the biggest dog in town when if we brought an NBA team here. Denny was in favor of it immensely for the simple reason that most of the NBA players don't go, or most collegiate players don't go to a university to be a medical doctor or a lawyer. They go to try to hope to be in the NBA. That's their profession. And the trainers and the scouts would all be here all the time, seeing Denny Crum's players. And he was very supportive of it. So, but he wasn't the coach of the team at the time. One of the things that I wanted to mention after I mentioned David and how much I cared for him, one of the most amazing people I ever met in my life is I wanted to say everything in this book is true. It's all true. It's not very favorable to some people that you might know or might have heard of. There are people that are still involved with the NBA that cannot believe that we screwed up as bad as we did. And now I want to tell you about a gentleman that, I forgot to bring this. I don't know where this thing. You need to know, I haven't, once I finished this book, I didn't quit or lose connections. I finished it NBA owners used to call me, want to know, is anything happening? We talk about the Grizzlies in the book, leaving Vancouver. And we were right in the middle of that, getting that, because David had made a mistake, one of the few mistakes he made in his life. He thought when China, when everybody left Hong Kong, or all the people left Hong Kong, most of them moved to Vancouver, Canada. And the bottom line was that it didn't work. They weren't basketball fans. Vancouver was a soccer place, and CFL football, and that's what it was. So the owner wanted to get out. David wanted it here. And we tell the story in the book about what happened with the Grizzlies. They wound up in Memphis. We had a signed deal approved by David. And the Board of Governors quietly, it hadn't gone to the Board of Governors meeting, but yet, because they hadn't had one. It was to be in Dallas in October, early October of that year. A signed deal with the Charlotte Hornets owner to bring the Charlotte Hornets to Louisville, Kentucky. The governor had agreed to build a stadium. They would play in Freedom Hall temporarily. As we say it here, the governor was going to, Patton was going to build a stadium. You know where the pointed building is on Main Street? Well, that was a parking lot at the time, owned by the Blue family, and they were going to utilize that whole parking lot area for the stadium, and then have a hotel across the street. And Paul Patton had agreed to that, and it was going to be done. The reason they were leaving Charlotte, and I didn't mention this in the book, but it's the truth. The owner of the Charlotte Hornets we all make mistakes in life, but most of us, 99% of us don't do something as stupid as this, and that is have an affair with the cheerleader for your basketball team. And you certainly don't do it in Charlotte, North Carolina, where Billy Graham has his headquarters. So when you talk about screwing up, somebody really screwed up, you know. So anyway, it had to go. The Charlotte Hornets owner had to go, and he wasn't even a part of this. He was kicked out of the league, and the minority owner, a guy by the name of Woolridge from Atlanta, was in charge of moving the team, and it was coming to Louisville. And I tell you how we lost it in the book. That's the fourth one we lost during the course of this book. The other was the Houston Rockets. David, they couldn't build, they were tired of the Astrodome in Houston, and they wanted a basketball arena, and they voted. The vote was against the plebiscite. Was against it, and so they were available to move, the Houston Rockets. They even visited Louisville. We took them around, showed them Freedom Hall, and all of that, and it's all mentioned in the book. Bottom line is, they got a very wealthy guy, and he decided to build an arena anyway, and they built it to save the Houston Rockets. Had that not happened, we would have had a team here in the late 1980s, originally called the Rockets, Houston Rockets. And there are a couple of other instances that are not timely at the present time. But accidentally, I have a friend how am I doing on my 20 minutes? Am I screwing up here? Okay. The latest event is a tragedy. And there's a gentleman I wound up getting his name because I wrote, I was never going to get a hold of Elon Musk. This guy in Chicago knew him, so I was able to communicate with his general counsel before Twitter and before all of that stuff started and before Musk left California for Austin. So I sent a letter to Musk in care of the general counsel. He wrote me back and sent the pieces of paper that I've given each of you with the book. And that piece of paper is the 1950 U.S. Census. And Elon had supposedly, and I guess he did, according to what Sewell told me on the phone, had done that with the green markouts are all in the original one. And it was a simple one-sentence letter. My CEO, I can't say the one word, my CEO wants to know what the F happened to Louisville. Now that sounds like, I don't know Elon Musk, but you can hear him saying that. But when you look at that page, it's astounding. In 1950, we had 30,000 more people in this city than Atlanta did. We were twice as big as Nashville. We were bigger. Look at all the cities that we were bigger. And so I can see where Elon Musk would say, what the hell happened? When I told the general counsel, well, in 1950, everybody smoked cigarettes. You couldn't even see across a thing called Freedom Hall because of the smoke, okay? And then Luther Terry, the Surgeon General, determined that cigarettes cause cancer of the lungs. And eventually most people quit smoking. The irony of that particular story is when I was at Vanderbilt, I dated the daughter of Luther Terry. It's how all of these things come about in my life is it's hard to figure. But she was a nice lady from Washington, D.C. Anyway, so when I told Sewell that, he said, that's not going to help. Because called him my CEO. My CEO is going to say, well, you had 50 years to do something about it. It's 2020. It's 2021 now. Why didn't you do something about it? All the corporate headquarters left, and the only one, and he knew Louisville, the only one that you started was Humana. That was it. Nobody has ever moved a corporate headquarters to Louisville, Kentucky. Nobody. We've done a lot of talking. The mayor had a big pronouncement about that the other day. It might be because he found out I was going to be making this speech. Let me tell you the tragedy, the most recent. There's a gentleman, and I'm going to call him Richard. I talked to him last night, or twice this week, and I promised him I wasn't going to use his name. But I can call him Richard. I ran into him because he had been to Louisville once, and I met him years ago, and I knew he was rich. I got a hold of him and found out that he was at that time still bidding on the Denver Broncos. He lives in Palm Beach, Florida. The Denver Broncos, he decided to quit bidding at $3.3 billion. okay? And it was eventually sold to the Kroenke family that owns Walmart or something for $4 billion in the Broncos room. He also was going to thinking about buying the Washington Commanders, the NFL team, football team, because he thought it was a stupid nickname. You can't call it the Redskins. I understand. He understood that. But my God, can't you find something better than the Commanders? So I knew he was legit. I checked him out, and we talked at length, and he agreed. I sent him the book. I said, you need to know what you're walking into here. You need to know, but it's still basketball country. And he agreed with me in a letter that will be in my estate, but it won't be given to whatever my estate is. Might not be anything in it, but I'm not going to do that. He agreed in writing in a letter to to hire me because of my connections with David, and David was deceased now, but I still know a lot of those people, and I know about a third to a half of the members of the Board of Governors. He knew more of them than I did. He knows the guy in Miami, and he knows Tannenbaum at Toronto, who's the chairman of the Board of Governors, which is the governing body of the league, the majority owner in each team. And he knew the people to pull it off. And I arranged a conference call with him and the mayor, and they talked sometime in maybe February or March, and according to him, it was fine. And then we arranged another conference call with the board of directors, I guess it's called, of the Young Center. And I, unfortunately, couldn't attend that conference call. My wife had emergency surgery, gallbladder surgery on the 11th of May, and that's when the conference call was. And unfortunately, I had to be there, and unfortunately, when they took it out of her navel, which is the way they do gallbladder removals now, they spilled the bile out of the gallbladder into her lower abdomen, and she had to have another operation, so I didn't work for a month. But I wasn't on the conference call, and I know what he said to them, and I know what they happened. He said, I'm going to hire Miller, and he and I are going to get a team, either an expansion team, or I'm going to buy if I can talk her into it, the lady that owns the New Orleans team, Gail Benson. Her husband died. He owned the NFL football team, and he also owns now owns the New basketball team, which is not doing very good. Their lease is up this year, which would make this move even more attractive. In the lease in the thing called the Smoothie Center, which is, according to what I understand, the worst arena in the league. So they had the conference call, and I'm not on it. He tells them that. He said, and I'm going to go, and I've got the money to do it, and I'm going to get a team, either by expansion, when the league decides to expand, and they're going to, or I'm going to buy a team and transfer it. But I'm not going to pay to get Louisville ready after having read this book and everything else. And he explained to them, by getting it ready, that means Bruce has got to work a deal with you, along with you all, and where U of L is satisfied and happy, and so you could share the arena with the women's team and the men's team and the NBA, and you got to get that all worked out. They've got the suites, and they've got the seats, He said, he said, there are people in the league, and I know who they are, but I'm not going to mention them, who think that the Colonels name cannot be used because it has connotations, racial connotations of a sort. And he said, so I think it ought to be called the Kentucky Bourbons. And he said that would get you, and I want Bruce to be involved with the bourbon industry, all of it together involved, not just one particular bourbon, but all of them together. And we need to get Lexington involved and Bowling Green, and even maybe Cincinnati a little bit, because it's an expressway. A lot of people go to Cincinnati Reds games from Louisville and Bengals games. And when I represented Kenny Anderson and Boone goes, and when there were games up there, that expressway is, I say New Orleans was like a traffic jam. So he said, you got it. So y'all are going to have to hire Bruce to do that. I'm not going to come up there and spend time. I got 14 companies in the world that I own. I don't have time to spend in Louisville. You've got to get a guy, and he's the guy to do it because he knows these people. I asked him, is that exactly what you said? And he said, yes. I asked, since I wasn't on the call, I asked members of the Board of Governors, a board of trustees of the Young Center. Basically, that's what they said. He said they refused to hire me. So, simply to do what it would have to be done if any NBA team was going to deal with this, was refused by us. I think it's tragic. When you think of what that would do to bring this city and our state together, it's almost frightening. And then when you look at the 1950 census that Elon Musk's general counsel sent me, you wonder what the hell happened to Louisville. It's right there in the census. Look what Nashville had in 1950. 178,000 people. We had 369,000. Atlanta had 330,000 people in the 1950 census. We had 369,000. We were 30 to 40,000 people more than just Atlanta. And they passed us by, as Richard once said, it's like Rick Van Winkle put to sleep. We do a lot of talking. We've done a lot of talking over the years. Oh, we'll do this and we'll do that, and we'll do. Where is the Wells Fargo headquarters who left wherever they came from and went to Charlotte? Where is the Bank of America who left California and went to Charlotte? That's what happened to these other cities. And we, as Richard said, it's almost like we've been Rick Van Winkle. We're going to have to do something about it, ladies and gentlemen, or we're going to be an overgrown Madisonville. And I gather because Kevin is up here, I can talk longer than I'm supposed to. It's not a pleasant story. It needs to be written. I wrote it, and it needs to be reread because we have not learned the lesson. And I will tell you one thing and then I'll stop. I sent a letter, an email to this week, last week, to some of our officials in Seattle. Okay.
Let's get into the question. We got to see with the tough question.
Yeah, okay.
Question you want to
DJ Bruce, Kurt Jacobs, how you doing?
Yeah.
So you were, this is like Twilight Zone to me, you were my 9th guest on my program. It was Leadership Landscape. I interviewed you in early 2006. Your book had been out maybe a year. I'm now married 15 years. I have a 12-year-old son. What keeps you doing this? I find it fascinating. I'll just call it your moxie, your grit. You don't give up. I mean, it's really fascinating to watch.
Well, I had an advantage that most people didn't have around here, and that is I knew David so well. Now he can't help us now because he's up there, but I feel like he was such a good friend. I feel like I owed it to him to continue because we spent an awful lot of time on the phone. And I also think that it's what Louisville, it's the one thing that would make sense. We can't do an NFL team. We can't do and it's now televised worldwide. The Derby might be televised worldwide, but it's one day a year for 3 minutes or however long. This is 41 home games, and I saw recently where the Freedom Hall or the Young Center's revenue stream is down. It was a paper part. So that's I don't know the exact question. But
Why do you keep doing it? It's fascinating.
Well, that's just what my wife asked me this morning. What the hell are you doing going talking about that? It's a good question, and there have been times in the last year or in the last month when I found out that they had not been agreed. I don't know what it would have cost to do that. Probably wouldn't have cost very much, but he wasn't going to pay for it. And I don't blame him. Why should he pay to get Louisville big time when he's going to already probably have to pay $2.5 or $3 billion to buy a team? So I think.
Kurt, you only get time for one question. You have the same question, Kurt.
Bruce, Tyler Allen, how are you? You actually started to answer my question, which was, could you talk just a brief moment about the actual economics of the NBA? Because the city of Louisville, my experience is we have some fanciful notion that having a big-time college basketball team is somehow an economic driver for a community. And when you look at the information about professional sports, there is no comparison.
No, there is not. In many of the NBA cities, take a look at the names of them. Many of them have substantial collegiate teams. Charlotte had a team that went to the NIT and the NCAA. It would not adversely impact, and Denny believed it and was supportive of it. He wanted the scouts here all the time to tell his recruits, they'll be watching you every day.
Great, thank you. My name is Walt Kuno, and I have a question for you. First of all, anchor down. I'm a fellow Commodore, so that's great. Travis Perry from Lyon County, Jr., just surpassed King Kelly Coleman as the all-time leading scorer in Kentucky high school basketball history as a junior. So, my question is, who is the best basketball player in Kentucky in every decade, and you can pick what decade you want to start.
College?
Basketball player in Kentucky, however you view that.
Well, I think for the University of Louisville, I think it was Wes Unseld and Butch Beard. Both of them were recruited by Adolph Rupp to show he's not a racist. And and they will both tell you, and I didn't represent UNSA, but I did represent Butch and talk to him all the time. As far as a professional player, I think the best, you mean from Kentucky, or they ever played here? Well, I think it depends on, I think Louis Dampier was the top guard I ever saw play here. I think Issel has been a long time friend of mine. I think he was indispensable. I think if we hadn't had the three-point play, and if they didn't have it now, the idea of a power forward who was good enough to shoot a three-pointer from 20 feet, Issel would just been another forward trying to get the ball to a center, which is the way the game was played in the 30s and 40s and 50s. So the three-point play that the ABA started changed the whole nature of basketball to the point where all four players on the floor have to be able to make a three-pointer.
I'm going to find Keith for the last question. Ashley Brower with Next Strategic Communications. I'd like to point out we are a major league city because we do have racing in Louisville, and if you haven't been down to one of the games, we've got top-notch talent from across the world, and it's incredible to watch. But my question is, if there was one thing that the city could do, one thing, to get an NBA team here now, currently, what is it?
I'll just be quite frank, if I knew what I could do, I would do it. But I don't know, this last thing, this guy was prepared he could bid him $3.3 billion. I'm not talking about millions, I'm talking about billions for the Denver Broncos. He was ready to go. And for the want of, but he wasn't going to come up here and spend his time. I keep doing that. Come up here and spend his time. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to the question, other than you got to have a billionaire, and I only know of one in Kentucky, and it's the Gainsworth family, and they're in horses, and I haven't even talked to them. And so it's going to take somebody that doesn't live here, who believes enough in Louisville that they would seize the opportunity. And I don't know the answer to that.
One last question, Keith.
Keith Miller, to Bruce Miller. The question I think that everybody's probably answering at once is, what would be the name of the team if we had an NBA team here today? What would be that name?
Well, like I said, Red McCombs, who's now deceased, but owned the San Antonio Spurs, and his daughter runs the San Antonio Spurs now as and I've communicated with her, she thinks the idea of calling it the Kentucky Bourbons is magnificent. I've talked to the guy, Dan Gilbert, that owns the Cavaliers and owns Quicken Mortgage. I haven't talked to him, but his top guy has. He thinks, right now, there are about 6 or 7 members of the Board of Governors of the NBA that would vote, have already told me, or told somebody, that if Louisville was up, they would vote. But this business, they're going to have to play in the, you can't do anything with Freedom Hall. Freedom Hall is going to have to be temporary. And I've talked to David Beck about it, if we need it. And I've talked to the Bellarmine coach about it. If Scotty Davenport, thank you. If he promised me, if you can get one and they need to use Freedom Hall for a year or two, we'll go back to Knights Hall for a year or two, as long as we get to play in Freedom Hall. So I mean, I've got all of that's been done, but to turn down something that would cost probably, I don't know what, I'm sure I've talked to the executive director of the Bourbon Association, Snyder, whatever his name is. and he's in favor of it, but nobody's tried to bring them all together. You don't just want Brown Foreman, because they're in competition with Bill Samuels, or his family. So you just bring them all together and let them all participate. That's what we would do.
Thanks a lot, Chris, really appreciate it. Time for a briefcase.
I got it.
Only one team short.
It's still in the sack.
He mentioned the two best players in the history of Kentucky, Wes Seinfeld and Butch Bears. Bob Cousy was in the impression Butch Bears was the best. He was the best person ever played in the sport. But Bob Cousy was the best basketball player ever to play the sport. Butch Bears. Next week, our speaker is the chief of LMPD. This will be a great week for us. Chief Jacqueline Wynn Ballarol, she's really very passionate, very exciting, and very doing a hell of a job where she is. So next week she'll be speaking. You need to register for that by Monday at noon, as usual. So after a long weekend, make sure you don't put any guests who want to speak to Craig Sherman about what is running this, go over the table here. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.